These hi Graham. These banter sessions are beginning to get off the ground. We've had an idea a while back that obviously we're still doing things with our website, still doing things with raising money, blah 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 blah. But doing the banter sessions of different topics each week has proved to be a well, there was something we really wanted to start. We'll talk a bit more about what else we're doing shortly, but great, delighted that you could make it. And I'm conscious you and I haven't spoken very much recently, so
yeah, I know, but I wanted to sort of raise my head above the parapet, you know, just share what we're doing with the wider group, and you know, it might be a timely point of reconnection.
I think so, yeah. I'm going to get set up so I can show you some stuff from our end as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Love Mikey's screenshot.
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that very impressive? It looks like all the hedgerows and bushes on the Isle of Wight, where the wind comes hurtling in from the southwest, and they all have that leaning angle on them. Fascinating.
Yes. Yes, whether you've been drinking or not. Yes, indeed.
Yes. Morning, Stuart.
Hi. Sorry, I got my timings a bit muddled up, and I've managed to rearrange an appointment for later. So,
oh, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran into chaos this week because the United States has obviously changed their clocks, and so instead of being the normal number of hours behind us, they're one less, which can really make a mess of meetings if you happen to get it wrong.
Yes.
Well, one of my calls is to California, and so their time sort of it stays fixed as a 10 o'clock in the morning call from them, but it suddenly jumped from being 6 o'clock in the evening for me down to 5 o'clock.
Right.
Very non-understanding Labrador couldn't see why he should be affected by. He's
I knew a lovely Labrador called George, and he was a pub dog about a half an hour's walk from here. Well, no, an hour's walk. And he was great, and he'd come up and greet you and sit by you while you had your pint. But then when the food arrived, he walked away, which is amazing for a public dog.
Also for a
That's
Labrador.
incredible for a Labrador.
Yes.
Well
Unheard
trained.
of. We have a Labrador. That wouldn't happen with ours.
No, exactly.
No, Cupboard Love is their middle name, isn't it? Or they're two middle names. Can Cupboard Love be double-barreled? I don't know.
Ours is called NRF, which stands for no redeeming features.
Gentlemen, you're starting to worry me. I'm getting a Labrador in a fortnight.
Oh dear. Oh dear. I don't want to get the word spread about the great collaborations going to the dogs. But anyway, carry on. No.
Well, the best one was our first one, who my son called Magic, and he was a very black dog. So to us, he was all known as Black Magic. And then he disappeared. He went away.
Oh, really?
So I called up the local RSPCA contact and said our dog's run away and disappeared. And the lady said, "Well, what's his name?" And I said, "Magic." She said, "That's a very clever trick, isn't it?"
Oh, it's been too long since I've been to the Isle of Wight. I must go.
So depends if you want to go back to the brewery or not.
Did you say you've got two breweries on the Isle of Wight now? Was it two?
Yeah, well, there's a very nice gin manufacturer as well. This Mermaid Gin is going great guns at the moment.
All right, okay.
So they're very popular.
Yes. I just had this visual image of mermaid and great guns, but never mind. There you go.
Well, you know, there's this sort of time warp on the Isle of Wight. Everything is running backwards, or certainly much later than on the mainland, which is known as the North Island, by the way.
Right. I didn't know that.
Oh yes, no, you're on the North Island. And so on Monday, I took my wife out for our Valentine's Day dinner. So I thought time is slower over here.
Oh, sounds good. I'll definitely come.
Welcome to the newcomers, Tristram, Mary. And say hello to Jackie.
Nice to be here.
Jules and Gary yet. I'm expecting a couple more, so we'll give it a second or two. But in the meantime, let me go through my GDPR blather for those license holders who are holding us to account that this session is being recorded. It will go up on YouTube later. And if you don't want to be on YouTube, this would be a great time to turn your camera off. However, I think it's much more fun to give everybody all the astonished expressions that we can come up with today on our faces.
Yes. Well, we've started well.
So,
Yes.
so there's one more name I'm expecting at least. Sarah's just arrived. Good day, Sarah. And
hello, sorry I'm a little bit late.
That's all right. It's worth it to see the view behind you.
Where's that, Sarah?
It's a place called Solva in Pembrokeshire.
Oh, right. Yes, indeed.
With the tide out, I think. Yes, the tide out. It's a very, very pretty little harbour, and it sort of goes, as I'm looking at my screen, out towards St Bride's Bay.
Okay.
Well, it's very interesting that Pembrokeshire has a tidal range or timing that is completely different from everywhere else in the country.
It does.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
it does indeed. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks for learning today. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
certainly, I mean, the tide behind Belinda is quite different.
Indeed. Yeah.
You've got room to talk. Tides around the Isle of Wight are a nightmare.
Only
Double high tides. And...
only to visiting foreigners. The locals.
Yeah, my ancestors arrived in Pembrokeshire by sea, but they weren't particularly welcomed by the Welsh because they were coming in as taking over the place. But they managed to settle down now.
These are your Norwegian ancestors.
No, these are the Norman ancestors. When William Rufus was on the throne, and the younger sons of the people who had won the Battle of Hastings were getting a bit restive and wanting some more land and all the rest of it. So he let them loose on Wales, and there we go. Then from Wales, they decided to invade Ireland in 1170. Oh, I could bore you.
Oh, interesting. Well, even I didn't. Well, the Solva used to be quite a tidal harbour, and you used to get the shipping, the schooners in there, dropping the lime off, and there are quite a few lime kilns.
Right.
I think there's 3 good preserved ones, and then they're all around the coast, round up towards St David's, St Justinian.
Wow, gosh.
So
Well,
there's
given that
places for the Normans to land all around the coast.
Yeah.
Given that we've held off for 5 minutes to let the hardy people arrive, let me say good afternoon to everybody. How very nice of you to come along. The banter sessions for great collaboration, amongst other things, give us the opportunity to give you an update on what's been happening and where things are going in the future. So before we move on to today's topic, let me just ask Andrew if he'd like to say a few words about where things are.
Okay. Very briefly then, we have taken over the Great Collaboration website, which has got a lot of good practice for individuals and some guidance for local town and parish councils. We are in the process of expanding it to include a lot more collective actions for both councils and community groups. And this is something we have been talking with on and off with Ric and Carbon Copy in the past. And I certainly don't want to steal any of his thunder. But I don't know. I'll let Ric speak first before I start showing. Unless you'd like to see it now, Ric, I can show you what the sort of things we're looking at now. Would that be helpful to you, or later?
Whatever works for everybody here. If you want to share what you have, and then I'll build off of that.
Okay, fine. So what we've got is here we are, Carbon Copy. There we go. So this is a web page in development. It's not live on our site yet, but it will be within the next 2 or 3 weeks is the intention. And it certainly recommends going to Carbon Copy. I won't click on that because I'm sure Ric will show us that at some point. We've got some topics and guidance already available. A lot of it has been developed through the Society of Local Council Clerks. But there's a whole host of things here which is in red, which we are looking to find links to. And it may well be, Rick, that some of this advice and guest practice is already on Carbon Copy, but I haven't looked on your site again lately to confirm it. So all the bits in red are sort of work in progress as well. Things about community groups. How does a community group work with its local council? I mean, it's one thing for councils to work with their communities, which they don't all do, but it's how do we get into that? Energy, of course, there's a community energy toolkit there. Lots of stuff on food and waste. Here we are, recycling all this. So again, the bits in red are the ones that we're looking to develop links to. We're not talking about reinventing the wheel. We're not talking about rewriting stuff, but the stuff's already published. Then we'll be very glad to promote links to it. Quite a lot on land use and biodiversity. Again, here we see lots of different things. Money, honey, particularly perhaps for local councils, but it will also they also have an in respect for community groups. Transport, again, active travel of different kinds. Something about using your voice, which is particularly going to be for parish councils in this stage, but of course, under the individual actions, there's already a use your voice section. And there's things about adding things to the individual actions about being a sports club and other events that are going forward. So that is just a quick snapshot of where we are. So we will be going live with that as soon as we've got a few more things publicized. We're also producing, going the next page, local networks, encouraging people to join up and work together with each other. There are some ways you can get in touch through these various associations and local councils. Also, there's a climate emergency centre network around the country. There's other organisations like Locality and Transition and rural community councils as well. So as you can see, we're busy populating. We're using the old counties at the moment, partly because that's what that's what the county associations and town and parish councils use. But you'll see we're beginning to populate that, and that will be, oh, there's the Isle of Wight. We'll be adding in a load of things there. London is a bit interesting because obviously London is a huge area. I mean, there's a sort of higher level climate change partnership. There's only, I think there's only one parish council in the whole of London area, which is Queen's Park, which is new. But we'll see how we go with that tomorrow. The world. In due course, we're looking to have connections to Wales, Scotland, and hopefully Northern Ireland as well. The other thing to share with us, I'll come away from all of that, is that we are looking to have a pilot, a regional pilot for the work that we're doing with Great Collaboration in terms of supporting local people, providing advice, but equally important, gathering advice and requests from people. That's going to be happening in East Anglia. That's because we already have key volunteers engaged in Norfolk, Suffolk, Cambridgeshire, and Essex, two of whom are on the call today. And so that will be, we're looking to have our first local meeting, but we've had some planning meetings about it essentially. Looking to have a first local meeting about it on April the 10th with people from that area. So there's lots of things going on. We've also got a lottery bid in at the moment for some more funding, and we'll see how that goes when they get back to us. So I think that's an elegant sufficiency, Graham, from me. And thanks again to Rick for he will obviously be able to feedback on what's already available through Carbon Copy.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. I would just say that in addition to us providing links to all sorts of things that are already out there, we're also developing the technique for everybody else to come in and tell us where everything is, so that there'll be input as well as output from the website. But thank you. So without more delay, let me please invite Rick to introduce himself and the stupendous work that they got on their website, which has been hugely impressive. And I'm looking to learn all sorts of things from it. So Rick, over to you, please.
Thanks very much, Graham. And thanks, Andrew, too. Super excited, actually, to be sharing with a wider group a bit more about what we do as a charity. And in doing so, what I really want to do is for you to think about us as a resource. So, Andrew, that was really helpful in terms of like, you know, the skeleton and where you're starting to populate content. I think there's probably a lot of stuff that we have maybe already identified that you can use to populate the Great Collaboration website. So first I want to kind of go through, familiarize you a little bit with what we're doing, and think about it as, oh, that's going to be really useful. We can grab that. That would be a really good outcome. Second, I want to in particular talk to you about the publishing platform that we've created as a way for people to share their climate action stories. Because again, in terms of how we can amplify all the good work that's happening, we've got a robust, proven platform that you might be able to use. And then thirdly, so I'm really cramming a lot into my hour, we are tentatively scoping out a new research project. And I'd love to kind of give you an overview of that and see potentially how I can get you involved. So without further ado, before I start to share parts of our online hub and kind of give you a flavor of what it looks like, let me just give you a bit of background on myself and then a bit of background on Carbon Copy, the charity. So in terms, and by the way, jump in, because this is definitely a banter. So initially it's going to be kind of me introducing stuff, but then when we get into the website and stuff, I'd love it to be a bit more interactive if you've got questions and stuff. So a bit about me. I'm actually in Windsor and Maidenhead Borough. So that's where I live. I think the thing that's probably most relevant to my involvement in Carbon Copy is about 5 years ago, I wrote a book called Civic Revolution. And it's all about the collective power that we have locally to change things for the better. And so it was really a call to action for people to get more involved in civic life. Me thinking through and putting my thoughts down into a book helped me want to take the next step. And my involvement in Carbon Copy, I'm a trustee, was me putting some of that thinking into action. So Carbon Copy started in 2020. It was me and 3 other trustees. And it was really a response. So my lived experience was I was very active with a community group that was trying to get their council to declare a climate emergency. And once we had done that, we then realized that we needed to work together to put together a plan. And we also realized we didn't really know what we were doing, where to look, who was doing what. And so there was a lot of trying to connect with other councils, figuring out what does this plan look like, what's a good plan, what are the elements we need to consider, et cetera, et cetera. This is all kind of a little bit past history because lots of us have already kind of lived through that already. But hence there was that gap, and Carbon Copy as a charity came about because we realized that people are so busy doing their own thing, they haven't necessarily got the time to go and ferret out all these great examples, and there's real work to be done in terms of discovering best practice and then figuring out how to propagate it and amplify it and save us from reinventing the wheel. And so the name Carbon Copy is very much about copying best practice. That's the idea. We can accelerate and speed up by just copying success stories wherever they may be. So that's the essence of the charity and how we came about. And our motivation is to really speed up more joined up collective action locally. And that's across different stakeholder groups. So local government, community groups, local businesses, anchor institutions, etc. All of us need to come together, obviously, to get closer towards a net zero goal for our local areas. And at a high level, we do that through a combination of inspiring people through the examples of others. So people like yourselves in your community are the people we want to shine a light on and say, look, here's the kind of people that are driving change locally. See what they're doing and or copy what they're doing where you live. So inspiring people through the doers. The second big thing we do is around connecting. We do a lot of signposting. If people are interested, where do you go to find out more? Connecting to the resources that the project owners make available. And we're a big fan of collaboration. Collaboration in terms of how things get done on the ground, but also as an organization. One of the reasons why I love reaching out to people like yourselves is how do we collaborate? And then I think the third very high level, and then we're going to jump into the website, is we want to normalize this activity. You know, we want to make more people that aren't necessarily taking that next step and doing collective action to do so. And one of the ways we're doing this is just to make it feel like it's just the normal thing to do, that you don't have to be, you know, an eco warrior to get involved. It just makes sense for a whole host of reasons. And so that normalizing happens through a lot of the communication channels. So we are sharing stuff through social media. We have a podcast, we have blogs, we write articles. I'll show you some events that we run. But it's all this kind of stuff just to reach out to a wider audience and engage them in this. Because obviously the more people we get involved locally, then obviously the faster we move. So that's kind of high level, bit about me, bit about carbon copy, and broadly how we try and speed up change. If I share what carbon copy looks like, because we basically started at the start of COVID, we very much were online, and then we've evolved to being offline. But this was kind of our core, was really online, facilitating these connections, etc., etc. So let me just highlight some of the key content elements that we have. And again, I'm doing this and asking you at the same time to think about, oh, is this useful or relevant to what we're doing? Is this useful and relevant to some of the content we're gathering for the Great Collaboration website? So if I go to this tab here, this is a way for people to see what's going on at a local area level. Now, we only go so far as local authority areas. So there are on this map 379 different local authority areas. We would love to figure out how to get more granular, but we were understandably a bit intimidated by the fact that there are thousands of parishes and wards across the country. So as a number, that just became overwhelming because we wanted to have fair representation from everybody. We felt we could just about manage that if it was 400. So this is one way of navigating where you actually see the net zero targets that the council area has put out. If I click on any one of these, we have a local authority area page, if you like, where we share some key stats in terms of emissions specific to that local area. That's all government statistics. The council's target, whether that target is for the council specifically or for the wider area, which is obviously a really important differentiator. We have, and we've just literally updated this last week. We work with the Met Office and Ed Hawkins at University of Reading to produce local warming stripes for all 380 local areas across the UK. And we do that because they are incredibly powerful ways to visualize how the climate is changing and to start bigger conversations and to engage people. So it's a really useful visual. And again, it's there and freely available. It would clearly be very relevant to all the parishes within a local authority area because we are talking about the climate. But nonetheless, there is differences between the respective local authority areas up and down the country. So we share that visual. We also share the action plans that the councils have published. We link to Climate Emergency UK so that although we do not judge how the councils are doing from an action point of view, they've done a very, very thorough job at doing so. And so if you want to see how your respective local council is doing from an action perspective, that's the link. We also team up with another organization that looks at, based on progress, what is your likely net zero target year? And so in this example, for instance, where Dumfries has got a net zero target of 2025, based on current progress, they're actually going to get there in 2077. And then we have a number of initiatives, which I'm going to come on to a little bit later, but then we then share local initiatives in terms of what can be done, what are people doing locally in order to move forward faster and together. So that is a whole section, which is kind of taking a geographic focus. We have another section where this is really popular, where people are interested in finding out what can we do in terms of community actions. And we bucket these community actions into these kind of 6 buckets, and underneath each of them, you'll see again sort of more tactical examples of what can be done locally. So for instance, climate resilient places to live, create a community hub. There's a page where we have typically a video from one of the organizations that is doing something that's relevant to the initiative. We talk about what creating a community hub is all about. If you want to start one, we signpost people to resources where you can do that. If you want to join one, we signpost people to, you know, where is an existing hub near you, for instance. So that's what that section's about. That's about community actions. There's about 20 different community actions across these really broad categories of how do you address the climate breakdown and how do you protect nature. Another thing that we do, and again, so I'm just throwing stuff at you, but just so you get a feel for what's there, and again, what you can potentially just grab and repurpose. We have found it incredibly successful to run a really big event up and down the breadth of the country, where we are highlighting what people are doing locally to address the climate crisis. And it takes the form of a mass participation event. Last year, we're doing a variation of it this year. Last year, it started at Ben Nevis, and it finished at Big Ben, and it went over 30 days. And you can imagine the route wiggles through Scotland, through various parts of England and Wales. And along the way, we encourage people to participate in it. It's not a super sporty thing. And or we highlight projects and what people are doing as part of the relay. And we generate a huge amount of media and publicity behind the event that we then shine back onto the people on the ground doing good stuff. So we found it to be a really effective way of raising the profile for local climate action, because people get behind the event, that's the one-off thing, and then we then say, well, look at all these great people doing good stuff up and down the country. So that's an event. It's being repeated this year, as and when the route is finalized. If it's passing close to you and you would like to use this for your own benefit, consider or get in touch with me. We do, as I say, we do have quite a lot of leverage in terms of getting excitement behind what people are doing locally. We have a blog, we have a podcast, which is also proving really interesting in terms of bringing these stories to life. We've just started a new series. I really would encourage you, if you want to get a feel for how we are storytelling, and equally, whether you have a story potentially that you would like to share. Again, this is all about us raising the profile of great stuff that people are doing that isn't widely known, and we would like to amplify that. So this is a very this is a potential stage for that, and we celebrate what people are doing. So have a listen, get a feel for that podcast that we have, and then again, if it's potentially of interest, do get in touch with me. I'm whizzing through. Let me focus on stories, because this is where I want to talk about this publishing platform that we've created. We have about 1,000 local climate action stories on Carbon Copy. One of the things that really makes this stand out is that for the most part, they are written by the project owners themselves. So we hear what people are doing in their own voice. The people that contribute also have control over their content, etc. We're not a gatekeeper. We are a platform for them to share what they're doing. And you get various benefits from doing that because you can use that as a way to encourage more people locally to come on board with what you're doing, but also you can reach out to a wider audience and you can reach out to like-minded people doing similar projects or projects at similar stages to where you're at, etc., etc. You can find some commonalities and make some connections. This is where, and again, we are not precious in terms of these stories are not exclusive to us by any means. We cross-publish and we're happy to share stories, vice versa. We want to get the good news out. Once you have 1,000 stories, then you really need to figure out how do you navigate. And so we have a number of different ways that people can navigate across all the different stories that we have. We consider the type of story by the type of action area that they are addressing. And these aren't, this isn't reinventing the wheel. In many ways, when we constructed this, we just looked at lots of different kinds of plans and we tried to use similar kinds of categories as people have in many of their thinking already, and as you already have in some of your planning documents. So people approach this in terms of what kind of action area am I addressing? Increasingly, we're finding that this is a really, really useful way for people to navigate and to bring people in. We're calling it positive impact. Jargon is co-benefit. In many ways, it's not the co-benefit, it's the primary reason. It's the primary motivation for a lot of people is, they are looking for projects that maybe help address air pollution locally. That is the motivation, as opposed to, a net zero target. So for a lot of people, this is a really interesting way to discover what's happening. We then look at geographic reach of the projects. Is it a response? Is it an adaptation or a mitigation activity? Kinds of organizations. And for the most part, there's more than one kind, which is what we're looking for, is collaboration, and the size of organization. And you can click as many of these as you like, and then you obviously press search and you get some filter below. So right now it's unfiltered, so you've got 60 odd pages of these. Each project has its own page where the people who, in this case, Rosie, shared her story, the advice that they would give to people that wish to do something similar, and some of the metrics, what success looks like for them. And these write-ups are varying length. We always encourage people to go directly to the project owner's website or wherever for more information. Again, we're not a gatekeeper. So you're interested, this is enough for me to want to find out more. Great, where do I go? And then similarly, you can either, if you're interested in the topic more broadly, you can click on here, or this is that local area page that I was talking to you about first thing. That would take you to the Leeds local area page. If you're interested in, everything to do with projects that help increase fairness, then we have, again, gathered everything, the content we have by an action area or positive impact. These are all the initiatives that help improve fairness locally. These are the blog posts that also address that topic. Here's a podcast that brings that to life. So there's a way to kind of slice and dice the stories through the filters, or if you're coming at it from an action area or a positive impact, you can navigate that way. Realize I've thrown a lot at you, but I think for me, this potentially is one really nice overlap with what you're working on and what you've just said in terms of wanting to move on from individual to more collective. And I should say this right up front, we do not focus on individual, not because we don't think it's important, it's incredibly important, but we are focusing on that next step, which is what can I do once I've made a few lifestyle changes? And that next step is doing something in my community, doing something that's more place-based with other people. And this is a resource for helping people come together with that in mind. So these are all stories about collective action, many of which have the local council as one of the key stakeholder groups that's driving change. Equally, our definition of business includes CICs and CBSs. So it's not big corporates, because we're looking for businesses that make a tangible impact locally. That's one of our criteria. And so again, a lot of these community groups that come together and formalize their activities around a community interest company, for instance, we have categorized as a business as opposed to community group, which is something that may be a little bit more informal. So maybe if I just kind of get any feedback that I have on this, I think potentially something that you could make use of, either to help populate what you're doing, or equally, if there's stuff that you may want to use this platform for showcasing your work, because we've obviously got reasonably high profile already, so there will be lots of eyeballs, etc., on stuff that's already here.
Rick, let me, whilst you can browse the chat to see what Amanda has had to say, because it certainly echoes in a much stronger way what I was about to say about your site. But in the meantime, I'm just going to ask that we've had a request from one of the attendees if people could change their names on their screens to represent either whom they are representing or where in the country they are, because our requester is in Wales and is feeding a little bit out of the English side of life. And so I've said I'd be delighted to put places on there that showed that we're from all over, and also we represent lots of organizations. So if I could ask people to change their names by going into the 3 dots on the top of your screen and just selecting rename, that would be a big help. I've written down a couple of comments, Rick, for your system, which is first of all just to say, echoing Amanda, wow, this is an extraordinary site. I'm hugely in awe of your filtering system. I think that's just sheer genius. And I love the appearance of the site and all the various modules that you've got. Very, very impressive. So having had my say and hoping that you're going to go move on and tell us what the project is that you'd like us to get involved with. Let me open the field to other people who want to chip in at this point. Oh, I'm sorry, I did have one more question for you, which was when people are putting up the stories for you, do you have a template for them to use to get the right sort of a shape to their document?
Yes, we do. That's a good question. So we are just changing that template right now. So literally, unfortunately, I can't show that to you. We have a placeholder page. All the links of sharing my story, we just basically say, hold off. And literally this should go live next week.
Okay.
But ordinarily you would click on a share my story link at various places on the website, and you get taken to an online form that just helps, because obviously the filter works provided each story ticks the boxes for which action area am I addressing, what are some of the positive impacts of what I do, what's my local authority area, so it can then appear in the right place on the map. It can then be found if you filtering by action area or by positive impact, etc. And then importantly, when people are sharing their story, not only do we want a little bit of the backstory around how did you get into this, etc., where are you on your journey, but people love to hear about the kind of the my advice section. They want to really hear from people that have gone through this about what would I do differently? What would I not do? As much as, you know, what would I recommend you do? You know, learning from other people's mistakes is really valuable. So we do encourage people to be honest and share some advice. And then there's also some metrics. What does success look like? So we do kind of specify some of the content we want, and then we leave it open to how people wish to tell that story.
Okay, well, I'll leave it open to you whether you'd like further feedback now on how you've gone so far, or whether you'd like to wait till we get to the end and have questions and answers, because there are questions coming to you in the chat session, which you can either address now or later. Up to you.
Okay, so let me open the chat. How do you like me to answer questions in the chat? Like,
Oh,
read
just talk to people. Just talk to people.
Can we include a link to your website in the carbon literacy training and on the Dorset Climate Action Network website? Absolutely, Belinda. Yeah, I mean, this is a resource. So if you find it useful for wherever you are at, then please do. So yes. So I got a hand up.
Yeah, can I just ask a question as well? So
Yes.
I had a quick look on your website. Can't believe I haven't found it before now, so I'm delighted that you're here today. And I just had a look at Dorset Council, because I'm a Dorset councillor as well as a town councillor. And where you mentioned that you put on there, some councils just have their own climate action plan as opposed to a county-wide one. So do you put both of those up, or do you just put the county-wide one if they have one?
That's a great question. So we're evolving this. And so this will change within the next probably month or so.
Okay.
So what we have done to date and what you see now is one climate action plan. But what we have noticed is that there are many. And there are biodiversity plans as well as climate action plans, and there's climate strategies. So there could be half a dozen, and I think they can all be very relevant. And you know, who are we to judge which is, if you like, the best one? It depends on who's coming at it and what's their angle or interest.
Okay, because
we work with. So the solution is we work with My Society,
right?
And My Society are essentially gathering all the various plans that the local councils have produced, and we've agreed with them and with another couple of organizations that they're going to be the repository, and we steer people. In fact, it's on our website. If you've got more up-to-date information, you know, ping it off to My Society. So various organizations are basically saying, if you've got more information, don't give it to us, give it to My Society. My Society ideally will hold the most up-to-date set of plans, plural, for each local council area. And then we and various other organizations will then draw from that. So we are about to, within the next month or so, evolve this little content block on our website, and we're going to publish all the local plans that Dorset Council have produced.
Okay.
But we're doing it through My Society.
All right. No, because it's interesting, because they've set themselves a target of 2040 for their own operations, but 2050 for the wider county, and they've done it deliberately to be. They're hoping that they're realistic targets, whereas a town council, we declared 2030, as lots of other town and parish councils have, which was kind of aspirational, but we probably realised that we might not reach it. So it's interesting how the targets vary according to you know, what the scope is, I suppose.
And in fact, there's a toggle here where this is the council's target.
Okay, right, I missed that bit. Perfect.
I didn't show you, and this is the whole area, and it obviously goes a lot darker. Sorry, you can't see this. But we as Carbon Copy are very keen not to berate people that have high ambition. We love and celebrate that people are that ambitious, and I think we get further if we have stretch targets that we might miss than if we have really conservative targets, and it takes a lot longer to get there. So that's why we have held off of making any judgment on the quality of the plan. And in fact, because Climate Emergency UK have done all that work, we're going to say they're the authoritative source if you wish to have some view as to how robust the plan is. But for our part, we just want to make more people aware that these plans exist and that these plans are a blueprint. And we're encouraging people to use that as a point to rally around and come together, because there's been lots of effort that's gone into each of these plans, as you know.
Thank you.
Can we move on to Amanda, please, Rick, who's got a question for you?
Yeah.
Thank you. In fact, Rick, I'm going to seamlessly move from Belinda's point into my bit, which is I represent parish and town councils in the north of the Cotswolds on the Cotswold National Landscape. I wonder, when you've got national parks and national landscapes that are producing their net zero plans, where, you know, how does that fit within the local authorities when we cover parts of more than 6 counties with a 3rd biggest national landscape, even if you put national parks in there? So we're absolutely huge. That's the first one. And may I reserve the right to come back with my actual question?
Yeah, absolutely. So I hear you, and it's something we struggle with a lot, because we're trying to be as granular as we can, recognizing that in doing so, we are not covering people that have a wider geographic coverage. So essentially, we made this call that we're going to send from a geographic perspective, our unit is a local authority area, which means when we have, like you say, bigger entities that cover multiple, right now, because we're wrestling with how do we show that visually and where does it appear, we haven't figured out the home for that yet. So right now we're not covering it. The same issue we have, sorry, with like combined authorities. When we start to talk about bigger entities that cover multiple local authority areas, that there becomes duplication, etc. And we're just sort of saying, if we can get to this granularity where we've also got ideally an area-wide plan that's been put together by the local authority area, that kind of works for us as a point of reference. It's not ideal, and there are other points of reference.
Okay, ours is not an aggregate of the local authorities.
No.
Ours is a completely different beastie.
I know.
Produced in a different way, but it's seen as the first of the national landscapes. So all of the national landscapes nationally are looking to our model of how we did it, which was around engaging with local communities. It was engaging all the local authorities. It was looking at academic work. It was engaging producers, farmers, etc. So it provides a significant stretch in both ambition, but also in the methodologies used. And I wonder whether there's some way of just click referencing it within the area bit. So whether it could just be putting a link in there when you click on that geography, that it kind of can plug in the national landscapes. It's just an extra complexity to throw at you, because I did give you a great big red heart in the chat box, because I absolutely love it. And my question was about co-ops as well. So when you were talking about CICs and the different models, I just wanted to give a really big plug to co-ops, because we're doing a lot in community energy, community transport, in all sorts of different areas. And so often the cooperative model is mute, and I don't hear it, because CIC seems to be the new not-for-profit sort of label to be used. And so I'm just going to say it one more time: cooperatives.
Thank you. And cooperatives are definitely there. Definitely there. And I agree with you. Yeah.
Thanks, Rick. Love it. And I used to live in Runnymede, so.
Oh, okay. So you know my neck of the woods.
Oh yeah. And was flooded probably at the same time you were.
Yes. Yeah. Very flat and close to the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if we could move on to Andrew now, please.
Thanks. Hi again, Rick. Following on really from Amanda's point, something I'm wrestling with is having things for businesses, but there are community enterprises, which are they community groups? Are they businesses? Amanda's mentioned community benefit societies, community interest companies, a whole raft of those sorts of things.
Cooperatives.
And I'm one, yes, and cooperative. Yes.
Cooperatives. Thank you, Andrew.
Yes, well, yes, cooperatives used to be Industrial and Provident Society, and then and now tend to be called Community Benefit Society. There are different models. There's about 20 different constitutions, Amanda.
Got
Yes,
to stop you there. Co-ops is slightly different.
All right, okay, fine. I'm not going to I'm not going to argue with you. There are about 20 constitutions you can choose if you're setting up something like this. So, just the question is, if we have a community enterprise, do we record that under business, or do we record it under a community group? I'm thinking of there may be something a different category, but I don't know what your take on that would be.
I'd have to go back and check our definitions.
Right.
So I don't know off the top of my head. Where I feel that we may need to do a bit more work, again, this could be really positive in terms of us collaborating, is I'm not sure we have the list of all 20, for instance,
right,
that you've just mentioned.
Okay.
So we may need to actually have a full list to make sure, you know, that we're mapping consistently and correctly across.
Okay.
And can I draw your attention to Mike's comments from the Hay Community Assembly, if you will, because that's yet another definition that might want to be called. Mike's in the chat, but I imagine he can also speak if he wishes to.
Hi. Yeah, I'm very happy to speak, but I've kind of written our model down for you to see what's going on with us. We're very lucky in Wales that we have the Future Generations Commissioner, and that means that everything that we do in Wales, we have to consider future generations. Every piece of legislation that goes through the Senedd goes to his office, and if it is not approved by his office, then it has to be changed. The Commissioner has no power, but a huge amount of influence. And we're working largely through Race to Zero, which is a United Nations organization. So we've set up our national version of that, and we are setting up our regional versions of that. And all our county councils are joining that particular initiative in order to actually go out into communities and create and generate different models which are suitable for that particular community in order to address carbon targets. But we've also been looking at using intrinsic as opposed to extrinsic language in order to motivate people, because motivating people to do something is very important. We've just run an assembly in Hay-on-Wye, and that particular assembly was oversubscribed by 100%. We had over 100 people in the room, and it was one pillar of a 3-pillar initiative. And if you look in the chat, you'll see what the 3 pillars look like. And this has all been organized through Hay Library, or the Paris Library Service, where we set up a CIC in order to save Hay Library, and we're now working closely with them. And we've created a library service and a facilitators group in order to run assemblies, in order to be able to organize these 3 pillars of that particular initiative, one of which is intending to get us to become self-sufficient in locally grown food within the next 10 years. That will cut our carbon footprint by 23% in that sector. The second one, which is the glue that holds it all together, is looking after the well-being of people by coming up with initiatives which where we can catch people before they need NHS help and engage them in community action and provide them with community support. And the third one is we are looking to develop our own energy company so that we can generate the equivalent amount of energy that we are actually using in the town. And if we do that right, not only will we reduce our carbon footprint by 51 or 52%, but we will also bring profits into the community, which we can then use to support those people at the bottom of our economic sphere. So we have no idea, none of us have any idea whether any of these things are going to work, but we're having a shot at it. And we're going to be trying all sorts of different things to see what works and what doesn't work. And even if this model doesn't work in our community, it is a model that can be taken up by other communities. And both the Welsh Government and the Future Generations Commissioner are actually intending to see if they can roll this particular model out to communities across Wales, because it looks as though it might fit with many other communities. But what we're not doing is we're not pointing the finger at people and saying, you've got to change what you do and you've got to cut your carbon by this amount and that amount and the other amount. Because we found that by doing that, we actually turn people off. But by doing this, we do the opposite. We get people to work together. And after we've got them into working communal groups, we hope that we will be able to set up small groups in each street with a whole list of things that people can do, where they, they have a drink every couple of months. They say, right, I'm going to do this in the next couple of months. And then they have another meeting in a couple of months' time. And they say, well, how did you get on? And it's sort of like a supportive accountability partnership in a communal group in order to roll out the other things, many of which I saw on your website. Actually, when I went to your website, I was completely overwhelmed at all the things that you could do, thinking, oh my God, if we've got to do all of these things, I'm not sure I want to start even. So I was concerned about the motivational effect that your website had. However, I've told all our people about your website because you've actually done the thinking and done it extremely well, I might say. And I'm just a little concerned about motivation to get people together to do things. So yes, you can go to your website and say, yes, I'm going to do one thing, but you're not doing it in communion with a community. So there's no accountability part in it. And that seems to me to be possibly a problem. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and I think I'll shut up now. I've said enough. Thank you.
A couple of thoughts, if I may, just in response, Mike. That was incredibly helpful. And also just reading through your notes as well. So just to let you know that we are working with Climate Cymru and aware of the whole big race to net zero, and they will definitely be a key part of that running out of time event that I mentioned to everybody a bit earlier through June, because we want to shine a light on all the good stuff that's happening. And on lots of fronts, Wales is very progressive. So we're very keen to highlight that as part of our event. Your model is really interesting, and it's a bit of a segue to, if I may, Andrew or Graham, touch upon the research that we are thinking of doing. Unless there's any more questions on what I've shared now, just in the last 5 minutes or so, can I just
move on?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I'd like to segue, because I think, Mike, that your point around the model is really interesting, because one of the things that we're looking at, I'll just put this in the background just for reference for people, but look at that, but listen to me. One of the things we're really interested in doing is, from a research point of view, is to try and understand why there are some pockets of the country that are collectively moving forward and are on track to achieve pretty ambitious targets. What we've noticed is there's a lot of really good ambition, high ambition locally, but when you track progress, it's falling short for whatever reason. But we're really interested where there is high ambition and where people are on track. And what is the secret? What's going on the ground locally? We are potentially looking at it from a local authority area level, and are very curious to understand to what extent the parishes all the wards within that local authority area are aligned and part of the solution? How much are they actually driving it? What kind of correlation is there? Because again, our level of granularity right now is just the local authority level. Alternatively, we go deeper and we look at what's happening at levels that are closer to communities. What are the parishes and the wards? What are the different models that are out there that are really driving success? And doing some research at that level, and then getting help from organizations and networks like yourself to identify what are the interesting models or places that we should go do our research, and then do research across a spectrum of scales to understand if there's commonality across different scales or what the differences are. If you are looking at solutions and collective action that's really hitting the ground at a parish level versus, say, local authority area level. So these are all early thinking on us scoping our research, and definitely wanting to connect with various people within your network, depending on how it's shaped and to what extent we need to be pointed in the right direction.
The first question goes to Andrew, who stuck his hand up. So can I pass it to that?
Yes, absolutely, Rick. I mean, from the Society of Local Council Clerks, which covers about half of the parishes and town councils in the country, and also community councils in Wales, I should add. From the members' survey last year, April, I estimated only about 5% of local councils are working with their communities on this agenda. That's an estimate from that, extrapolated from the replies we got. If there are questions you would like to put into the next SLCC member survey, absolutely send them across, and we'll see what we can do. And in terms of looking for good practice, don't forget Frome Town Council in Somerset have been doing an awful lot of stuff. Yeah. So I suggest you've got them on your list of people to ask for, people being on track. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Belinda, please.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a really, really interesting question, because from my experience, so I was been a town councillor for 5 years now, and Dorset councillor for just 2 years. And I'm right on the Devon-Dorset border. So I was always looking to Devon and Cornwall to see what they were doing. And Devon seems to be, they both seem to be miles ahead of anything that Dorset was doing. However, there are within Dorset, and I have to say Dorset has come on amazingly in the last 2 years as a local authority, but it doesn't necessarily connect very well with the town and parishes. But having said that, there are a lot of town and parishes that are doing loads of stuff, and they're just going ahead and doing it. They're not waiting for anyone. So I would definitely recommend Bridport Town Council as a really good model of working with their community groups. And it's difficult because sometimes, so Lyme Regis Town Council recently became accredited as a carbon literate organisation, because I've done lots of training with them, but actually they're nothing like as I would say nothing like as carbon literate, as certainly in terms of how they're engaging with our local community as, say, Bridport is, even though we're the ones with the accreditation. So it's kind of going to be difficult to work out. But yeah, from my experience here, it's very, very much, you just need a few individuals, and ideally people in the community as well, but a few individuals in a parish or town council to kind of make the mindset really, really progressive. And I don't think it's anything to do with what the local authority or government is doing. Although obviously that helps. So in places like Devon, where they've got paid climate change officers, makes a huge difference. So yeah, very difficult to make a sort of judgment, I would suspect.
Thank you.
Rick, I've been surreptitiously but unsuccessfully trying to attract the attention of Jules, who's online, but traditionally is always doing 16 different things at once. But he represents an example of how you can bring local communities together, local parishes, to affect a climate action plan. And if he happens to have heard his name, he may wish to come up. But in the meantime, somebody else, was it Manda? You've taken your hand down again?
Oh,
Sorry, Graham, just on that
sorry.
point. Sorry, Amanda,
I am,
just to,
I am
just
here,
respond
Graham, and
to-
I'm listening
There
to
you are.
everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just saying, I need to connect with Jules anyway. Jules, I listened to something that you shared with this group, I think a couple of weeks ago anyway. So I was super impressed and interested. So that's
Fantastic. Yeah, that'd be good. I mean, so we embarked on some community climate action planning, which we thought was a great idea because, you know, on the basis that COP's a failure and the government isn't coming to save us anytime soon. And so we've written our community climate action plan in conjunction, well, with the blessing of our parish councils, and I'm a parish councillor as well, for 3 parishes, and then we've expanded from 3 to 6 to 9 to 10, and we're now offering community climate action planning workshops to community groups and town and parish councils, particularly in East Anglia, and developing Train the Trainer session. And sort of at the heart of that, or the delivery mechanism, is in fact a cooperative, a community benefit society. So a co-op by another name, democratically controlled, community owned, and we've just bought our pub, which is fantastic, as our climate emergency centre, and we've got 10 acres of land. And this is so wonderful to see all the great stuff happening all around the country, Rick, and really elegant UI UX. And in a former life, I was product development director for large scale SaaS applications with tens of thousands of customers, this kind of thing.
yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to geek out about data and get under the hood a little bit, and I'm familiar with my society and some of the good stuff they're doing. So this all looks really exciting.
Good. Well, please do ping me so I can get back in touch with you. I'll put my email address for everybody into the chat. It'll be great.
Good. Some people have had to leave, obviously, because they've got 1 o'clock appointments or they're late or whatever. So I will just ask if there's anybody else who wants to ask anything, if Rick wants to have any final words.
No, just to say thank you, everybody. I am super keen to stay close to what you're doing. And for us at Carbon Copy to figure out a way that we can be either a resource to you for what you're doing, or if we can showcase some of the great examples that you know about that we don't know about yet, so that we use our platform to your advantage.
Fantastic.
Well, let me just say thank you so much for an absolutely fascinating, mind-boggling, spellbinding presentation. And I think we at the Great Collaboration would be enchanted to work very closely with you. So absolutely, let's keep going as you wish. And
let us go forward together. We'll never surrender.
Fantastic.
Again.
Fantastic.
So thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for your interest. I will send out recordings of everything to everybody, including the chat session and the leads and links in there, so that you'll all be fully informed. And next week we have got, I think it's CSE that's coming to talk to us. So I do recommend that one as well. But I do appreciate your time and energy today. Thank you so much. And Rick, particularly thanks to you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
thanks so
much
much,
again.
Rick. That was awesome.
Take care,
Thank
all.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye now.